Welcome back to another YouTube video and thank you for joining me. As promised, this video I will be talking to two of my friends. They were both international students and are now permanent resident. So they have a number of experiences to share with you. But like I said, we won't be sugarcoating anything. We'll be giving you just as it is. So here we have Patrick Changor and we have Sanet Douglas. Sanet was a teacher back home and Patrick was a pharmacist. So we will talk a little bit about that, but we won't go too much into details about their background. Let's get started. So as you guys know, I've been talking about coming to Canada as an international student. So in your experiences, guys, at this stage in the process where you're thinking, you know what, let me go to Canada, what do you think you would have appreciated more if somebody told you versus you having to experience it on your own?
Well, I could say that maybe if somebody was more forthright in terms of giving you the pros and the cons, that would say make me put me in a better position in terms of to know how to deal with the challenges that comes with it.
Yeah.
For me, just lowering my expectations, getting out of my comfort zone and know that, expect the worst, escape the worst.
Yeah. And I think Sanet made a good point about getting out of your comfort zone. I think for many of us, not that we're saying it's a situation that happens for everybody, it doesn't. But for many of us, it was a big transition, coming out of your comfort zone completely. For us, we are all from Jamaica. The climate was a big one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about coming here. Did you get the right winter jacket? Did you get the right shoes? How did you deal with that?
Well, for me, luckily, before making the transition to Canada, I actually came here the year before to spend Christmas with my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I did kind of get a pep talk in terms of, what are the resources I need to get before I actually come here. And that was just one thing, so because I didn't really fully make up my mind if I'm going to come to Canada. So I actually came here just to see what the winter is like first, to get a first-hand feel before making the transition.
And that's a good point. I came here before on vacation, especially in the winter time. And to be honest, it was great. It was not how it was when I came here to live. I came with my family. I was driving in the car. Everything was already prepared for you. Because when you're coming here as a visitor, it's different than when you're coming as a student. So Sanet, the same question for you.
Yeah, well, for me, no, I wasn't prepared at all. And of course, like many, you're excited because it's a new transition and you want to experience winter, the snow and all.
Right.
But after a period of time, it's very frustrating. If you're not you don't have a vehicle, being outside too long, you start to shiver because it's too cold. You don't have the right jacket, the shoes. It's not right because again you're transitioning, so you don't know what exactly the right things to get, so you realize that you purchase, again you're trying to budget at the same time, so you want to make sure, okay, I want to make sure I get a reasonable shoes, not realizing, so you probably get a shoes for $60, but that shoes is still not adequate, so you suffer a little.
Yeah. And that's a very good point, because for me personally, I got a winter jacket because when you come here, you're doing the conversion. So you're doing the money conversion.
That's right.
Because you are like, you know what, if I come and I buy a jacket for 80 Canadian dollars, that's currently that's probably $9,000 in Jamaica. In your mind, you're thinking, you know what, that's a lot of money.
Definitely.
Like, because you're not used to, but for those persons that are from countries where you experience winter, it will definitely be different. It won't be the same experience as ours. But if you are from a tropical country like us, the transition is tough. And like Sanet said, you're trying to buy your shoes for $80 or you're trying to buy a jacket for $60 to save on that money for your tuition. But when you have to purchase one more every year, it kind of doesn't balance out. So that's something to think about. That's, you know, a big lesson learned that we can share with you. So let's transition now into, I know you guys drove back home, you know, and you had to take the bus
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
in the cold.
Yeah, and I think for me that was one of the biggest challenges too, because like in Jamaica was, you know, some sort of being established-ish,
Yeah.
and you know, have your own apartment and you know, driving a car, very nice car, and you know, when you come to Canada, like all of that really changes because you know, you're looking at a budget and how you're gonna manage your budget properly to make sure that you complete school with all your rent. You might not be able to get a job while you're studying, like with some people, depending on the program that you're doing.
Exactly.
So for me, I had to go back to taking bus, and that was really a shock for me, especially in the winter time. Like I had to walk at least like 15 minutes to the bus stop, and then you have to wait a very long time for the bus to come when it's so cold.
Yeah.
And where my school was like an hour away from where I was staying.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was all the way in Pickering, and I was traveling from North York. So that's a hell of a journey.
Yeah.
But most times that time in the morning when you have an 8:30 class, you have to get up at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And that
On your
morning
way.
cool,
Oh,
you know,
gosh.
with the snow, and it's so cold, like minus 30 or sometimes
Yeah,
minus
it's
20.
crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I remember where they was doing this construction, and I had to walk through that part, and it was so cold, and the water was so smoky and everything. But luckily, I had on a good shoes. So that, as you mentioned earlier, having a good shoes is
Yeah,
very good.
waterproof, right?
Yeah, and then when you go in the bus, chances are you might not get a seat. You have to stand up in there. So I remember those JUTC buses in Jamaica.
I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions.
Yeah.
FYI, we live in Ontario, Toronto, so we are not talking for everybody or every bus system. But I think that's a big misconception. If you are coming here and you know, back home we had to fight to go in the bus. Sometimes if you're going to Portmore or Spanish Town, it's tough. It's hassle and bustle, and in your mind, you know, I know a lot of people, when you're preparing, you're in this preparation phase, you're thinking, boy, I don't have to do this anymore. I won't have to be pushing anybody. I won't have to be fighting with anybody to go into buses. I'll get my seat because you know what? I'm going to a first world country, and you pay for your seat, so you sit in your seat and you don't have to stand.
Yeah, man.
Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I come here and I have to be doing it, stand up, and it's so cold sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there are peak times as it relates to the bus system. So as I said, early mornings, everyone trying to get to work, get to school. So you find that there are a lot of people fighting to get on, and especially another thing too that I've learned as it relates to the bus system, taking the public, you have to learn to be on time. And Sanjay, they can tell you, I'm a late bug. Like, because just again, a part of the transition, I always like say, okay then, I only need 20 minutes to get to school. Lucky for me, I live a little closer. And oftentimes I miss the first bus, right? And that's another 30 minutes perhaps that I have to wait to get on. And at that time I'm there, I want to urinate. There is nowhere to go, right? And outside is freezing cold.
Yeah.
Another thing too. So sometimes again, you just have to learn, again, a part of being on the public transportation. It's not like, as Sanjay said, we're from Jamaica. So by the time we go outside, we could get a taxi right there, 5 minutes, right?
A taxi.
It's not the same, right? So it takes a lot of adjustments, you know. You have to make sure you go out at least 5 or 20, sometimes even 20 minutes before, because you don't know. The bus is not always on time, so you have to factor that in. And employers here especially, they don't take excuses for lateness, right?
Winter,
so and especially going to the winter storm and all of those stuff that we experienced. Oh my gosh, it was
Oh
It
gosh,
was very crazy,
so rough.
honestly.
And I know they said, people will say we have Uber, go ahead and take the Uber. But when you're a student and you're trying to save every money that you have, the Uber is not an option. And
Definitely.
but a good thing to take away from this is that we have monthly bus passes as students. So
Oh yes.
that's something that we don't have in Jamaica. So if you're going this way, you're going that way, you're going that way, you have to pay. But we have a monthly bus pass. So we pay one fixed rate for the month and we pay for the bus pass. But who wants to pay extra for Uber? $30 to go to school when you already paid for the bus pass for I don't even remember what the bus pass
Was that for the
so-
TTC bus?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
for the TTC bus. You can share about
Yeah.
the Go, Patrick, because I know
Yeah.
the Go is very expensive.
Definitely. So where I was commuting from, I had to take two buses, and one was the TTC, which is more public transport, and I had to take the Go Buster, which is more like a coach kind of settings. It's a much bigger bus than that one, but it was way more expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't really have that in my budget too, because at the time I wasn't really budgeting to pay like $3 per trip
Right.
on the Go Bus.
So on average, what was the amount that you paid per week, you would say, to go on the bus? And bear in mind, Patrick, we only had in class for 3 days, Monday to Wednesday. So what was that price
I was
like
thinking of maybe about $30 or so.
per week?
Yeah, per week I was
Yeah.
paying for
Yeah.
transportation.
And
to
that's
school.
because it's just 3 days. And,
Yeah.
if it was, full 5 days, it was
Yes.
it would have been a different case.
Right.
For Sanet and I, how much would it have been, Sanet?
I think it
I
was
can't remember the fee.
it's been so long, but I think it was about 130.
Yeah,
Or
I think the
150,
120
they're
something
about.
about there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good about the bus system. Another thing about the bus system, don't want to spend too much time on this topic, but another point to note about the bus system, especially when you are taking the TTC, is that you better can run.
Oh yes.
You need to be able to run because, like Sanet mentioned, these buses might be early. It might be before your time. And when taking the bus here in Canada, it's not like, where we can go on if we miss it by 5 minutes and there's one behind it in 5 minutes, it does not mean that you're 5 minutes late. What it can mean, especially in the winter, is that you're an hour late.
Yeah, definitely.
It can mean that you're an hour late.
Yeah.
And especially for us that went to Pickering, there are certain areas in Canada where the bus is not very prevalent, like it's not close to everything. Once we got off the bus, we were walking far to get to school, So that's something you also have to consider where we talk about, transitioning from driving to taking the bus, but not only that, but getting proper winter gear. So everything ties into each other, so that's very important.
Yeah.
So now let's shift gear a bit. So in terms of transitioning to a new country where you didn't have any family members, or probably you have family members but you didn't live with them, whatever the case may be for you, you can kind of explain how you dealt with that transition. And did it do anything to you mentally coming here?
Well, basically for me, you just have to know that, before you actually come here, it would be good to at least speak with somebody who have been here before, who have actually, been through the process and might have done some things, and they can guide you through the process. So luckily for me, there were like maybe 1 or 2 people who have come here for school before, and they say, okay, well, the first thing you do, make sure that you get your SIM number sorted out,
Right.
a bank account
Right.
sorted out too as well, and those little administrative
Gems,
things,
yeah.
that gems that are pearls that you need to get done first,
Yeah.
to get yourself settled in. And in terms of finding a place too, that was one of my challenges initially, but luckily I was able to make connection with somebody who had an empty room, so I was able to get that place. But that's one thing that you should try to start with from back home before you actually get here.
Yeah, it's good to, as you said, networking is very important, and especially here mentally, just the idea of moving it has a mental toll on you, because after a while you start missing your family, and even though you may have friends or family, it's just not as the same as your immediate, so with that, it mentally, it's a lot of struggle. So you have to learn again to adapt and adjust yourself. And again, I spoke a little earlier about moving out of your comfort zone requires you to, as Patrick said, to share, right? Don't think that, okay, because Patrick was a pharmacist back home, I was a teacher, means that, okay, I can come here and rent my home apartment. Yes, but it means therefore I probably won't be able to pay my tuition, right? So it means adjusting to know that the possibility of me sharing with someone, just because the rent is very expensive, you need to prioritize what is important. Is it more important for me to live alone and pay $1,000 per month, or to try and share and pay a $600 or $500, you know? So that's another thing. And some of us, we have not lived with anyone like that for a number of years. So that's a whole thing. Learning is like being in college all over again, trying to, you know, get familiar with people and getting used to how they live, and you know, just trying to get by.
Yeah, and then these are different people from different backgrounds, different culture as well. So it's not like you're sharing maybe with your Jamaican friends, so you're familiar with, you know, the way of life, the type of food that they cook and everything. But let's say that you're sharing your house with maybe 4 or 5 people that might be coming from different backgrounds. That's a whole different type of culture shock that you're experiencing there. So for me, it was really a big challenge in terms of adapting and getting to know different people. At the same time, it's also good too, because you're actually learning, you know, different way of life as well, and to be able to adapt to these new changes. So,
Lucky.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying, lucky for me, as Patrick said as well, I had, and Sanjay had people, right? So lucky for me, I was able to stay with a friend for a period of time, so that as well that helps a lot in terms of, again, some of the things that you need to do, the know-how, you know. So that helps a little in saving again, so that if you can get someone, again, find out, yes, they may say no, but don't be afraid to ask, right? Because don't put aside your pride.
That's
pride
the biggest thing here.
is not an option when you come to Canada. As I said, outside your comfort zone, you have to put aside your pride. If you want to succeed, you have to put aside your pride.
Yeah, definitely, because that was one of the mistakes that I made when I came here. Because what you mentioned, like in terms of where your status was in Jamaica, like I was a pharmacist there, and I was doing pharmaceutical sales, working for a big corporate company in Jamaica. So I'm used to a certain lifestyle and a certain comfort as well. And then coming here, you expect that, you're moving to a first world country, so therefore it's gonna
comfort,
bigger comfort. You're stepping up, but for me it was more like a drop, you know. And at one point I was, you know, getting a little bit depressed, to be honest with you. And then I started to re-evaluate myself, and I started saying that, you know, if you think about the past too much, then it can make you so depressed. So let's just say that this is like a step back to make your life a bit better, because those things when you're dwelling in the past can really affect you mentally. And transition into a new country can do that. You know,
I think, you know, Patrick, you mentioned a very good point. I mean, especially for persons that are established, you know, it might be a little bit easier for, you know, a person that is coming from from school, high school or something. But having, you know, leaving your comfort zone, like for me personally, I was working in the alumni industry back home, and I was driving my car since university, and coming here, and you know, you come and you don't have a job immediately and all of those things. I mean, there's so many times I can't home that I am like, you know what, I want to go home. I want to go home.
Oh yes.
Flowing from that into, there's this expectation that once you come here, you will get a job immediately, and a favorable one. It happens. Let's just put it out there. It is possible. It is not impossible. But like Patrick mentioned, if you're from pharmacy, I am from chemical engineering, Sanet is a professor. These are professions that we cannot just leap into a job like that. We cannot do that. Patrick have to complete his 3 exams. I have to complete 4. Sanet have to do a bunch of things. We cannot jump into it like that. So for us coming here, getting a favorable job, tough.
Yeah, it is really a tough moment because I was thinking that, you know, as I come here, then after completing school, then I get my PR right away.
Yeah.
You know, some of those things weren't communicated initially when I just come to Canada. I thought it would be a seamless process.
Right.
Once you have your qualifications.
Right. Right.
No, but
Right.
it wasn't really that.
Another point too, Patrick says, it's determination, right? At times you feel very frustrated. You have to know, okay, you sacrifice this much because it's a lot of money to be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have already made that step. So, as I said, what's the sense of dwelling in the past? You just have to try to move forward. What can I do? Again, I had to I worked at Freshies, $14 or $14 something.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the money at that time. It's just
Survival,
trying
right?
to, survival. I'm just trying to make sure that
Yeah.
I have enough to pay my rent or pay whatever my expenses were at the time. I had to just make sure, put aside all of the pride and make sure that I have enough money to survive. Survival.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
survival.
But with that being said, Sanet, do you mind sharing that Hudson Bay? That's the second place that you worked, right?
Yes.
Share with us that whole saga of what happened that day and how you got that job. Because we're on the topic of determination. Going out there, stepping out of that comfort zone completely.
Oh yeah. So as I said before, I was working at Freshie, but at that time I wasn't getting enough hours to really cover my expenses, and I was just really tired and frustrated with the racism that I was experiencing as well. You have to factor that into. So at the time I wasn't. So I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna start walking around and see who is hiring at that time. So I just started walking and asking, and at that time I went to Hudson Bay and they had a job fair.
Yeah.
And I just
like
walked
that.
up to the person. I didn't know that she was one of the managers at the time, and I said to her, and she said, yeah, for sure, and she said, do you have your resume with you? And I said, I have it on my phone. I didn't come
Print
prepared. I
it.
just wanted to inquire whether or not you were hiring. And she said, yeah. And then she interviewed me right on the spot, and I was able to get a customer service job, and that I had that job until it was time again to move on, because with your PR, there are certain not jobs that you have to
some
to
certain
obtain.
classifications
Yes.
that you have to obtain. You have to be A, B, or O. But I'll get more into that in further videos. But just keep that in mind.
Yeah. So I had to, move on. But yes, it's just risking it, taking your step, and just make sure you have to do what you have to do.
And to Sanet's point, I kind of had a similar story. I remember I was working, but it was such a horrible place, and I thought to myself, there's no way I'm gonna keep working here, like I can't do it anymore. So I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna volunteer, because I like to volunteer, even though I volunteer for the PMI, because you know what, this place, we said it before, networking. I mean, the essence of that thing, and that's why I keep volunteering all the time.
Definitely.
Because networking is such a huge thing for me. I remember when Patrick and I went to the PMI session, and the president currently, he was saying all his jobs in Canada, he's been laid off a couple times, and he's never been home for more than 2 weeks, because it's those connections that he formed through the PMI that got him a job.
Yeah. So I mean, like, networking is the key too, because as what you just mentioned about being able to, pushing yourself to the extra limit to get opportunities.
Right.
That was what I had to do in order to get a job in my field.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because like, even if you don't know anyone personally, what you should actually do is try to reach out to using these social media platforms like LinkedIn.
Yep.
Make sure that one of the things that you do is to update your LinkedIn as well. I'm sure you're gonna talk on that in a different video.
Yeah.
But yes, so what I used to do, what I did was to use my sales skills from back home in terms of talking to people, like book like meetings with them, like coffee meetings. I would identify these these people in these companies that I would want to work in,
Mm-hmm.
and try just to get some more information about the company instead of saying that
Exactly.
you want to know,
You know?
get a job, you know, but
Exactly.
indirectly you're putting yourself out there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those were some of the strategies.
And
that
a
I
lot of
used.
time it comes down to, you know, putting your pride aside, because when I started volunteering with Centennial, I remember they had, you know, they sent out an urgent request to come to the office, and you know, they need some volunteers at the office. Was registration time, you know, there's a lot of international students coming to the international office, and I'm like, you know what, I have exam tomorrow, but that don't even matter. I'm just gonna go ahead and volunteer today. And it so happened that I was there and I'm talking to everybody, because it's also about, you know, mentally I'm out of my comfort zone, because I'm not a very talkative person. You know, if you don't know me, I'm not very talkative. I'm kind of shy. I'm an extrovert kind of person.
Yeah.
So, you know, I remember I went there, and so a lot of people in the office was not familiar with me, you know, on that one occasion. And I remember I mentioned to the lady that was leading the program, I'm like, you know, I'm looking for a job, you know, anything that's available at Centennial. Look at me, what do I know about working at a school? You know. So she was like, yeah, and I went and I did the interview on the Monday. It so happened that the manager at the time was a Jamaican, and I got the job. And listen to me, man, I don't tell yourself that you can't come into Canada. I went into the office. First of all, I've never done businesses in my life. Like, I've never done business in school. I don't know accounts. As you guys know, I don't know none of
You're a
those
science
things.
person.
Yeah.
You're a scientist.
And I went, and it was an office job. I had to learn Excel properly, because I'm always practicing Excel, Word, and I mean, I got so well with just doing all of that. It blew my mind, and that's how I ended up doing project management. But that story is for another day.
Yeah.
So we're moving on now to, you know, another topic, because Patrick slightly went on it in terms of preparation.
30,000 or 25,000 Canadian. It's gonna be a
It's going to be rough.
rough journey for you.
It's going to be rough.
Even though it includes maybe your first year tuition, if you're doing more than 1 year program, you might not be able to make that money back until maybe another couple of years. You know, so look at it as a long-term investment. You know, because if you're thinking that you might make that 25 to 30,000 right away, or maybe within 2 years, you might not, because remember that you're working up. Like your first job you're probably just making maybe $20 or $22 an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
And which, you know, like currently how the housing prices and stuff, like, you know, honestly, it's not a great amount of money.
Yeah.
It's not a flexible amount of money that you can say, you know what, I can save $2,000 a month with this. It's just not feasible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. To be honest, I think too, sorry Patrick, I think whatever is recommended on your, you know, when you're going through your study permit and you're confused, like, why are they asking for that much? I think that's
the amount.
exactly how much you need.
Yeah, and then the reason why they
Precisely.
ask you for that money is because they want to make sure that you're able to sustain yourself while you're in Canada. Because this city, like Toronto, it's very expensive living here.
Yeah.
You know. So,
Even if you don't, because a lot of people won't have, they just want the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have, let's say you perhaps borrow the money to prove that, you know, you can maintain yourself, you have to understand that you need to stay within your limits, you know.
Yeah.
Don't try because you see your friends getting if this is what you can afford,
Go for
then
it.
get
Exactly.
it. If it means, for example, the shoes that you get, you have to put on a 3 or 4 socks to go by, do
That's
it.
what
Yeah.
it is.
Don't
Yeah.
be afraid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if it means you're gonna put on extra tops, you know, underneath,
That's what I did
get
for my
it done,
first job.
because
Yeah.
the priority is you. As I said before, you have to learn how to see your way through getting rid of your pride and just trying to survive.
'cause-
The goal is for you to get your certification so you can apply for your PR, so you can get a job. Another thing to get rid of all your experiences, and if I had a PhD, whatever, that doesn't really matter, to be honest. You have to start all over again.
start over.
Right?
Exactly.
So you have to remember that not because I had 4 years, 5 years of teaching experience means that I'm going to come here and land a job. No,
Yeah.
you have to remember, it's just you're starting over.
You're starting
Yeah.
over.
Right?
Yeah.
Starting over.
Yeah, and for a lot of persons that we see, on social media and stuff, they skip that stage for you, and they show you this stage,
Right,
They
exactly.
skip that stage, which is fine because not everybody is comfortable with sharing their struggles and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
but plus, I mean, people are not going to show their struggles on social media.
Right.
It's just maybe
right.
a minute or 2 seconds of
Yeah.
their most happiest moments. In
Right,
their life. So
right,
it's a fake reality.
Right.
You know?
So, we just wanted to give you, as it is. It is.
As is.
If you see somebody doing something but you cannot afford it, what it means is don't do it. And there are small gems that, when I came here, people told me, in terms of, you don't need, if you know that it's cheaper to buy grocery and cook, do that. Not because your friends are going to the restaurant every day, every night, that means you're going to go along with them.
Yeah.
And if somebody posts their Starbucks drink, it doesn't mean that you need to go ahead and get your Starbucks drink
Exactly.
as well, because if you cannot afford the drink and you're not
I'll stick with Tim Hortons.
It's true. Just stay.
right, just stay, where you
your
can.
zone.
I mean, I normally make my own coffee the first thing in the morning and just bring it with me because sometimes I don't have the money to buy
Right.
Tim Hortons, much less Starbucks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
you
So
just-
I'm on a student budget. Like whatever money I have, it
And
has
you
to
do
time
that
me over,
accordingly.
and I do it accordingly. So that is the most important thing, man. Make sure that you budget everything out.
Yes.